Hello, anyone can learn to coders. In this episode, I'm going to provide a brief introduction to HTML, which should serve as a foundation with which you can progress further on your own. HTML happens to stand for Hypertext Markup Language, but that's irrelevant. Never refer to it as Hypertext Markup Language because then you'll be viewed as odd. No one has ever said to me, "Hey Jay, I think I found a bug in your Hypertext Markup Language." Just call it HTML. Now, HTML is a language that is the structure of every single web page on the internet. If you go to any browser and go to any web page, you can actually right-click on the page and then left-click on the option that says View Page Source, and you'll actually get to see the HTML that makes up that page. Let's see that. Let's just go to any web page. Let's go to anyonecanlearntocode.com. Okay, here's our web page. Now, if I right-click on it, so we can see there are a number of options here. Look at View Page Source. So left-click on that. And if you give it just a moment, you could see that there is HTML over here. This is the HTML that makes up that page. It's so beautiful. Actually, it's pretty ugly if you ask me. But don't worry, the HTML you'll write won't be that ugly. The first thing that I need to do is explain what HTML does. To do so, let's open up a regular PDF document that I've got here. Again, this is not a web page. This is a regular PDF. It's actually an article about Bitcoin. I'd like to point out the various sections of this paper, which will make a great analogy for HTML. I'm going to now describe the contents of this page in two different ways. Here's the first way. On the top, we've got big, bold letters. And then we have some smaller letters that are centered over here. And then we have another smaller centered paragraph. Next, we have some sort of larger, bold words, not as large as the line on the very top, slightly smaller but still bold and big. And then below that, we have regular sized words, regular sentences, regular letters. Okay, and now I'll re-describe this paper using a second way. On the top, we've got a headline. A little below that, we have the author information. Then below that, we've got an abstract. Below that, we have a subheader. And then below that, we have the main content of the article. What was the difference between my two descriptions? Both were accurate, but in the first description, I described the elements on the page from a visual perspective. I described how the words appeared. I described big and small, bold and not bold. In the second description, I described what each section was conceptually. I did not mention how the letters appeared. If you didn't see this paper and just heard my second description, you'd imagine that the headline is in big bold letters, but you couldn't be 100% sure. By contrast, if you just heard my first description without seeing the paper for yourself, you'd guess that the big bold line at the top was a headline, but you wouldn't know that for certain either. HTML is all about the second description, describing page elements conceptually. HTML does not describe how things appear. That's what CSS is for. HTML is all about concept. Let's scroll down a bit further on this Bitcoin paper and see if we can identify other conceptual elements. So let's go down a little bit. Okay, we have another subheader, more regular content. Here's a new one. We have an image over here, or you might refer to it as a diagram. Going further, we've got more of the same, another diagram. Okay, here we encounter a new one. Inside the regular content, we have a new concept, a new conceptual element. This is a list of items. I also forgot to mention that we also have page numbers here. Let's go further down. More of the same, more of the same. Okay, here we have a new one. Here we've got inside the content a mathematical expression. Let's go down further, more mathematical expressions. And here we have computer code. Yet another element. So going down further, we have more computer code. Now on the last page here, we have another conceptual element. This is the reference page. Okay, now let's go ahead and play with some HTML. To start, let's head to a very handy website called jsfiddle.net. Okay, here I am at jsfiddle.net, and you could see here on the right side we have these 4 boxes. For right now, we only want to concentrate on 2 of them. This box is the HTML box, the upper left-hand box. And then the lower right-hand box is the result. This will be the result of our HTML code, as you'll see in a moment. Let's go ahead and start building a web page based off of the Bitcoin article that we've just seen. So let's start with the headline. I'm going to go back to this article and copy and paste this headline. And we are going to write this in HTML. Now the HTML for the number 1 headline on a page is as follows. We use something called h1 and we put it inside a tag. Let me show you what I mean. That is an h1 tag. It indicates that what follows next will be the headline. So let's paste in the content of the headline. There we go. Now we also have to tell HTML when the headline is over. So we need what's called a closing tag. That will just be another h1 tag, but to indicate that it's a closing tag, right before the h we will put a /. That's how HTML knows that it's a closing tag. So what we've got here is a h1 opening tag, an h1 closing tag, and then the content in the middle is the actual h1 content. And again, h1 represents the abstract conceptual concept of a headline. To see the result of our HTML, you click this Run button here on the top. So you can see now on the right, we have our first web page. Here is our headline. It says Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Awesome.